The day the world's most powerful billionaire walked into a crowded charity event and saw the one person he had sworn never to love, he realized his greatest mistake was not losing money, reputation, or power. It was believing that a promise made from fear could control a heart that had already chosen. The man who had built an empire from nothing was suddenly powerless against a feeling he had spent years trying to bury. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel so we can continue sharing stories that remind us of the goodness still alive in the world. Cassian Vale was known everywhere as the billionaire who never lost. His technology company had transformed entire industries, his investments had made him one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country, and newspapers often described him as a man who could predict the future before anyone else saw it coming. People admired his intelligence, but very few understood the loneliness hidden behind his success. Cassian had grown up believing that emotions were dangerous distractions. After losing his parents when he was young, he learned to depend only on himself. He built walls around his heart because every person he had loved seemed to disappear. Money became his shield, business became his escape, and control became the only thing that made him feel safe. But there was one person who had always managed to reach the real Cassian beneath the success. His best friend, Everett Collins, had been beside him long before the billions, private jets, and corporate awards. Everett was the person who believed in Cassian when nobody knew his name. He had shared simple meals with him when Cassian was struggling and reminded him that a person's worth was never measured by a bank account. Their friendship survived everything because Everett never cared about the billionaire image. He cared about the person underneath. That was why Cassian made himself a promise years earlier. He promised Everett that he would never cross the line with Everett's younger sister, Genevieve Collins. Genevieve was different from everyone Cassian knew. While others were impressed by his wealth, she was more interested in the way he treated people when nobody was watching. She worked with community organizations, spent her time helping families rebuild after difficult moments, and believed that success meant making life better for others. Cassian first met Genevieve when she visited Everett's home during a period when Cassian was still learning how to balance his growing company with his personal life. He remembered being surprised that she did not ask about his company, his money, or his achievements. She simply noticed that he looked exhausted and reminded him that even people who seemed unstoppable needed someone to care about them. That small act stayed with him. The more he learned about Genevieve, the more he realized she saw the parts of him that he tried to hide. She saw his kindness before she saw his wealth. She saw his pain before she saw his power. And that terrified him. Cassian knew falling for his best friend's sister could destroy the strongest friendship he had ever had. Everett had trusted him with his family, and Cassian refused to become the person who betrayed that trust. So he created distance. He focused on business, avoided personal gatherings, and convinced himself that staying away was the honorable thing to do. For years, he believed he had succeeded. Then life changed everything. A major financial crisis hit one of Cassian's companies. Investors questioned his decisions, employees feared for their futures, and the media began painting him as another wealthy businessman who had forgotten the people behind the numbers. For the first time in years, Cassian felt the weight of failure. During the most difficult period of his career, Genevieve appeared in his life again through a community project connected to one of his companies. She was not there to rescue him, impress him, or tell him he was perfect. She was there because she believed people deserved support during difficult moments, including people who had spent their lives pretending they did not need help. Cassian tried to remain distant, but he noticed something changing inside him. Genevieve did not make him feel like a billionaire. She made him feel human. She encouraged him to visit the neighborhoods affected by his business decisions. She showed him families who did not need expensive promises but needed someone willing to listen. Slowly, Cassian began changing the way he led. He started making decisions based not only on profits but also on people. The transformation was noticed by everyone, especially Everett. Everett had always trusted Cassian, but he also knew his sister's heart. He understood that Genevieve was not interested in a glamorous life. She wanted honesty, compassion, and someone who would stand beside her during ordinary days, not just celebrate her during successful ones. Cassian feared disappointing the two people who mattered most to him. He carried guilt because he believed loving Genevieve meant breaking his promise. He thought protecting his friendship required sacrificing his own happiness. Then came the moment that changed everything. After a difficult period of misunderstandings and emotional distance, Cassian finally admitted to himself that avoiding Genevieve had not protected anyone. It had only created pain. The promise he made was built on fear, not respect. He had been afraid of losing Everett, afraid of being vulnerable, and afraid of discovering that someone could love him without caring about his wealth. The realization broke the final wall around his heart. Instead of hiding behind his fortune, Cassian chose honesty. He spent time repairing the damage he had caused in his relationships. He became more open with Everett, not by demanding approval but by accepting that trust had to be earned. He also allowed Genevieve to see his imperfections, his doubts, and the parts of himself he had hidden from the world. The journey was not easy. There were moments when Everett struggled with the idea of his closest friend and his sister becoming something more. There were moments when Cassian wondered whether he had waited too long to change. There were moments when Genevieve questioned whether a man who had spent years running away could truly learn to stay. But real love was never about perfection. It was about growth. Cassian began proving his feelings through actions rather than promises. He supported Genevieve's community work without trying to control it. He used his resources to create opportunities for people who had been ignored. He listened more than he spoke. For the first time in his life, he stopped trying to win every battle and started trying to understand the people beside him. Months passed, and the world began seeing a different side of Cassian Vale. The billionaire who once seemed untouchable became known as someone who cared deeply. His company recovered, but more importantly, his relationships healed. Everett eventually understood that Cassian had not stolen his sister's happiness. He had helped his best friend discover a life he never believed was possible. The friendship that Cassian feared losing became even stronger because it was built on honesty instead of fear. Genevieve also changed Cassian's life in a way money never could. She showed him that being strong did not mean carrying every burden alone. She taught him that forgiveness was not weakness and that opening your heart was not losing control. The greatest victory of Cassian's life was not becoming a billionaire. It was becoming someone worthy of love. Years later, people still talked about Cassian Vale's business achievements, but the people closest to him remembered something more important. They remembered the man who learned that success without connection felt empty. They remembered the man who almost walked away from the greatest gift he had ever received because he was afraid of hurting others. But instead of running away forever, he found the courage to change. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Before this story ends, take a moment to leave a meaningful comment about the lesson that stayed with you most. Was it the importance of forgiveness, the courage to open your heart, or the reminder that true love is built through honesty and growth? Because sometimes the person who changes our life forever is the person we were most afraid to let in. And sometimes the promises we make to protect ourselves are the very things keeping us away from the happiness we were always meant to find. Cassian Vale spent years building walls around his heart, but in the end, he discovered that the greatest fortune in life was not the empire he created. It was the love, trust, and second chance he finally allowed himself to accept.